Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. This is our first preview panel for InfernoCon, which is taking place the first weekend in October. Inferno Squad is really excited to host this, and this is the first time we've ever tried anything like this. So we're kind of looking forward to learning as we go. Tonight, for this preview panel, we are supporting Make-A-Wish. So if you look in the corner of your screen, you should see a donate button, and we would like to encourage everyone to donate to Make-A-Wish if you can do that. It's a charity that we in the 501st use quite frequently, and does quite a bit of good for a lot of people. So to start things off, I am going to let the panel introduce themselves. Tonight we have David Perdue. So let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Dave Perdue. I go by Maxall on all the forums, ID 71576, and happy to be here giving this a shot.
All right, next up we have Jason McNally.
Hello, my name's Jason McNally, TC 52557. Fairly recently joined the Legion back in March. Primary costume would be a clone trooper, and yeah, also excited to be here, and hope make this a good thing going forward.
All right, we are also joined by James Beveridge.
Good evening. Yep, my name is James Beveridge. I go by TK79347. I've been part of the Legion since back in October of 2018. So I've been doing this for a couple years. My primary costume is a New Hope stunt TK, and recently I just received a Snow Trooper, which I hope to be displaying very soon. And real happy to be here with you guys.
All right, and our final panelist is Jim Riley.
Hi, I'm Jim Riley. I go by Scarif Beach Bum on the forums, and I'm TI 30569. And I've got New Hope TIE Pilot, the TIE Pilot Reserve, Imperial Gunner, Bridge Crew, and a Shadow Stormtrooper.
Thank you. You'll note that everyone but David tonight coordinated. We all wore our fancy racing shirts. So we'll have to get him on board next time. I guess he wasn't CC'd on the email or whatever. I'm the squad leader for Inferno. And one of the things that we've been dealing with this year is the same thing everybody's been dealing with, which is how do you handle doing things during a pandemic? What we have is sort of, a hobby that's turning out to be really important to not just the members of our group, but the people who have enjoyed seeing us in various places. And obviously that's been a little bit short this year. So we have been getting really good at finding ways to continue to participate in this while trying to stay as safe as possible. So what we're going to talk about for a little while tonight is some of the experiences that these guys have had with trooping during this quarantine. And this is particularly interesting to me because this has never happened before. I've been in the Legion for over 10 years, and we've never had this kind of issue where we were having to turn troop after troop down for safety reasons, particularly when we were dealing with things like, are people wearing masks and are you staying away from each other? So I'm going to direct the first question for the evening to David. And David, I'm going to ask you, how important do you think that trooping during a pandemic is, both for you and for other people? And when I say other people, I mean your squad mates and the people that come out and see us.
Well, as far as importance goes, I really honestly believe that it is more important than we think. I mean, look, for us, this is our hobby. This is something that we enjoy doing, right? We get together with our friends, we get dressed up as our favorite Star Wars character for a couple hours, and we have a good time. But the folks, the kids that we're visiting, I mean, I can't imagine being 5 years old and going through chemo. I can't imagine, I mean, okay, I went through chemo. I can't imagine sitting with my son, with my daughter at that young an age while they're going through chemo in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, in the middle of a pandemic. So, I mean, I think this means more to people than we can, than we really understand. I mean, this is a bright spot that if it's, you know, for us, that parade may be, you know, we sit around and wait for a couple hours or for an hour, kid up, kid down, and we're in front of their house for 5 minutes, if that, right? But for them, that is something that I bet they're talking about for a couple of hours. I bet the next day that they're still talking about it with their family, with their kids. And I mean, that is even more important nowadays with what's going on in the pandemic than it was before. And it was absolutely important before.
That's true. And I think that the first troop that we did during this pandemic was you and I were there, and it was in fact a parade to celebrate a kid who finished his treatment.
Dylan the Destroyer, right?
Dylan the Destroyer. Now, James, you were at that event as well, correct?
I believe so, yes. I've actually done a couple of these drive-by parades during the pandemic. And even though they are, you know, smaller scale, I still think they're really unique experiences. I think it really shows, like, you know, in times of crisis, of what we can do creatively, you know, to still be able to do our duty for the community at large. And it's also been great because I've actually gotten to meet a bunch of new people at these events. Like I think first time, Jason, I think first time you and I met was at a drive-by parade.
It was actually Dylan's parade. That was my first troop as well.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of these are real cool. And I've actually learned a couple of things when trooping out. The main thing is that, well, two things. One, stormtroopers and riding in cars do not necessarily mix. It is, unless if you're standing straight up in an open vehicle, good luck trying to transport a snowtrooper in a minivan. Like I think clowns have an easier time, you know, getting in. The second thing is that your teammates, your squad mates, are very important to have around you to help and assist you throughout, especially when at the end of an event, a huge thunderstorm comes through and you only have seconds to get out of your armor and get going.
Those are all good points. And I think your point about armor and cars is well taken. So, excuse me, Jim, I'm curious. So we've been talking about the importance of trooping during this pandemic, and I'm curious, when you talk about when we talk about how important it is to the other people, and we've had a couple of people now discuss what the other people got out of it. How important do you think that doing these events is to the people in our group, the costumers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a real hunger out there for us to bond together and to get out there and do as much as good as we can. I mean, it's in our nature. It's why we do this. It's why we've invested so much of our our time and money into this hobby, is to go out there and do that. And the camaraderie is just something else as well, that hey, there's other people out there that are doing the same thing, and together we're so much stronger. So yeah, it's extremely important. In fact, I was extremely disappointed. The very first event that was canceled was actually one that I was organizing. It was actually going to be at my wife's elementary school. It was a science night. I was going to debut my Shadow Stormtrooper at it and everything. And it was there in mid-March, and it was the very first thing that got canceled. So there had been hope right up until the end that we would be able to do it. But I know that the kids there were very disappointed. But obviously, everybody is taking the safety precautions that they need to do. One of the things I think I've really noticed is the importance of it, as you said, to one another here, and to be able to maintain these bonds. And it's been so difficult in this time of social distancing and isolation and quarantine for people to have that kind of interaction. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been doing things that have led to what we're going to be doing in October with InfernoCon, is doing as much virtually as we can, whether that's for some kid that's out there that needs to see us, or just a squad event like what we've been doing every couple of weeks with a virtual cantina and game night. So anything that we can do to maintain that spirit, to maintain that camaraderie, and keep the squad alive, I think is something that serves all of us well.
Now, as you're talking, I've kind of got a follow up here for Jason. So I think that you've been at almost every troop during the quarantine that we've done. If you've missed one, I couldn't think of which one it would be. What is pushing you so hard? Is it just that you're kind of new to doing this and it's really exciting, or is there something else that's kind of pushing going out and taking the time to do these troops?
I'd say it's probably a combination of, just joining the 501st and wanting to participate in the events, meet new people within the Garrison. But I think most of it actually kind of comes back to Dave's point, as far as, this whole pandemic being hard on everyone, especially, kids who can't wrap their heads around what's going on right now. So, a kid's not going to understand that he can't have that final event to celebrate, him finishing his treatment for chemo. He's not going to understand, that the whole pandemic going on. So I think it just means that much more that we're actually going out there and doing what we can to participate in events, letting the community know that, we're going to try and do our part to make sure we're still out there. And at the end of the day, it's like 10, 15 minutes out of my time. And, you can visibly see everyone around you, just cheered up that much more, just from something that, again, takes hardly any effort on our end, but means, the world to all these people.
All right. Well, this next one is going to be for James. And so we've been talking about doing these troops, and one thing that has come up, a lot, obviously, is the safety angle. I'm curious, what do you think about now, before you go troop, that you didn't think about before the pandemic started? What's something that kind of stands out? Like, I have to pay attention to this.
Yeah. So when I started doing this back in 2018, one of the big things that I love doing was, interacting with people, children, adults, especially at big conventions. Like, you go out to a convention and people want to come up and meet with you, take your photo. Like, it's such a rush. Now with the pandemic, obviously things have to change. And I think, one of the most important things that we have to remember is that, even though we're kitted up, in these iconic characters, as much as it pains us to do, we have to, make sure that we maintain a safe distance. And the thing is, like, children and some adults, like, they're not gonna that's not going to be like the first thing that goes through their head, when they see us. Like they're not going to look at us and see, oh wow, they're really cool. Oh, you got to make sure I keep my distance. Like 5-year-old comes up to see us, like first thing they'll probably go through their head is like, I want to get my picture with them. Mom, dad, can I get a picture? Huh? Um, and and sometimes it's disappointing that we have to kind of dampen those expectations, in terms of what we can do. Um, and I'll be honest, like there have been times where I myself have slipped up. There have been times where, I've been out in some troops and, you know, sometimes I've made the mistake of, not maintaining social distance. If I tried to, reach out, try to shake someone's hand or give them a fist bump, like I'm caught up in the moment, of interacting with them. Like, maintaining social distance, like, it's probably not going to be in the forefront. And it's not going to be till afterwards I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I think, as the year goes on, as we do more of these, I would like to think that I'm getting better, in remembering, what's to be expected when doing troops such as these. Because I think it's important that we set example, not just to others, who are watching our exploits, but also to ourselves.
So, Jim, and thank you for that answer. That was a very thoughtful answer, James. Jim, one thing that kind of stood out from his answer to me was that you have these kids that run up, and I was kind of amused by the idea they'd ask their parents. I've run into very few kids that ask their parents if they can get a photo. They just kind of run up. But how do you deal with this kind of close interaction? With if someone, particularly a kid, comes up to you, how do you handle that?
Well, I think that there's a couple different ways to do it. I think a big part of it is staying in character, but staying friendly. And being able to do that, I think kind of disarms the situation. It kind of makes them think it's, oh, well, that's right. I can't do that. So, maybe it's, just holding up like a hand, like, stop there or something. So, but doing it in a very imperial way, but, maybe kind of, getting down on your knee or whatever, just kind of, show that it's not being done in a threatening way, but is being done in a cautionary way. So in order to help maintain everybody's safety, and I think that, the most recent one that I've been to, I think that by now a lot of people have actually kind of become accustomed to that. They'll get their pictures, but they'll stand far enough away, and they'll leave their masks on for the pictures. So, and of course, most of us, or if not all of us, underneath our helmets are wearing masks as well. So we're not just relying upon the helmets for protection, but also masks to ensure that the people that are there, if someone were to come up like that in close proximity, that they would still be protected.
That's those are some good points, particularly about the mask under the helmet. Now I got a tough one here for David and Jason. I'm going to ask you guys the same question because I'm curious as to what you're going to say. So we've all had these experiences where you do something. Maybe you go to the grocery store and you touch your face without thinking about it. Maybe you aren't careful to wash your hands one time. And I think we've all probably had the experience where we go, well, I wonder, was that one time, did I just do something that, I can't take back? Have you guys had an experience like that during a troop where some, things moved quickly and it was afterwards that you realized that probably wasn't a great idea? I hope that's not going to cause a problem. So David, let's start with you.
So a couple of kits I've got a 181 TIE pilot and Force Unleashed Shadow Guard. and they both have the really cool gauntleted gloves that come out to about here. I have always been in the habit. How do you take your gloves off? You put a finger in your mouth, you bite in your teeth, and you tug it a little bit, right? Yeah, break that habit after, it's rainstorm, right? You're trying to get out your kit, trying to get everything packed up because it's June, July, August in Virginia. Things are hot and sweaty. You do that the first time, you're like, crap. Not saying that I ever would. I'm just saying that's something that could happen, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. Jason?
And I'll actually go off of that exact point where I'm primarily in a clone trooper costume and I have leather gloves. So when you start sweating in that, they're locked onto your hands. It is really hard to get them off. And initially I had done that where I did, use my mouth to take them off, but I've been relying more on our handlers now to help me get out of those hard to get pieces that, I'd probably do the less than cleanly way to get off. But other than that, probably just kids who just run up and just try and like grab the blaster from you. And, I can hardly hear anything in the helmet as is. So as I'm trying to go down to hear what they're asking for, they're already tugging at the blaster, trying to take it, just for a photo or something. But luckily I started carrying little hand sanitizer pads inside my ammo boxes and sometimes the detonator on the back. But yeah, that's just simple things like that where, again, it all happens really fast and, you're either just trying to get from point A to point B or, take someone's photo because you have 3 other people waiting to try and hop in and grab a photo. It's little things like that. But yeah, probably biggest one would be the glove. That's the only one that I've done that's been the overall worst one.
So before we go on to the next round of questions here, I want to remind everybody that we are supporting Make-A-Wish tonight. So if you have a chance and can do it, please make sure to make a donation to that. You'll find the link on the stream. We really want to encourage people to do that. And when we are doing InfernoCon in October, we will be supporting things like this. So this is something that we're pretty excited about as a way to do some good and have some fun. At the end of this session, we'll be taking some questions. So if anyone has something they'd like to ask the panelists, just in general or for someone specific, you can put it in the Twitch chat stream, and we'll get to that here in a little while. So we're going to start with Jim because Jim has been sort of the tail end of every round we've done so far. So Jim, I'm curious, what is a memory that stands out to you from a troop during this pandemic, and why is that something that comes to mind?
So I would say that about 2 weeks ago, we did a end of chemo troop that was actually in person, not in a car, where we actually marched around a parking lot along with a bunch of others. And it was amazing to see everybody that turned out, the police department, the fire department with the big hook and ladders, the Chick-fil-A car with a Chick-fil-A cow in it. And we were there among them. And just seeing that, and the number of friends and family and neighbors that turned out for this little boy, it was just phenomenal to see that. And everybody there was wearing a mask. They were practicing social distancing. They were doing everything they should be. And just seeing the joy that, this kid beat this. And, for me, having come into that, that was actually my first troop after the lockdown. And it just kind of brought everything back. I mean, it was definitely different. I changed the back of the car and everything and met up with everybody there. But it was, that's why I joined this. And to be able to get out there and do it again in this situation and these circumstances, and to be able to bring those smiles. I mean, people were driving by as part of the parade, and they saw us on the side before we had even hopped in, and like they were waving to us from the parade, and they were just excited to see that we were there. And that's just one of the neat things about the 501st and this type of event that we do. Just having those screen accurate costumes where, you know, they see us and it's like, hey, I saw them at Disney. I saw them, you know, in the movies, you know, and be able to have that kind of impact on people, and to feel that again for the first time after 5 months, it was great. And you know, that's something that you know, it kind of added to, okay, this may be a new normal, but there is some normal about it, and it helped to kind of refresh me, and I think refresh the others that were there as well.
James, is there a moment that you can think of, and I know you've been pretty active as well, is there a particular moment that stands out to you, something that was particularly meaningful to you during one of these troops?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is, I believe it was a drive-by parade at Haymarket Square that we were doing. I remember we were all getting into a line, and it was really cool. It wasn't just us, but it was like a whole slew of different vehicles. I remember there was a 1960s Batmobile that was there. Kit from Knight Rider was also present in the parade. It was really cool to see all that. And then just getting up in the car with Jason next to me, and just driving down. You know, you feel the wind against your face, get that nice cool breeze going. And it was also really cool, just, you know, not just for, you know, our guest of honor, you know, to wave by, but also, you know, like all the passerbys. Like I remember like seeing like people who were like eating outside, they were waving to us, people coming out of their homes just to, you know, see us go by. And what was really cool is we decided, like after our initial run, we decided, hey, this was really fun. Let's do another run. Let's go for another pass. Which I think was really cool. I think so. That's like one of the more meaningful memories. I think is that, like, yeah, even though this is different, like, you know, we make the decision that, you know, if it's that fun to do the first time, let's do it again.
Now, David, I'm curious. So you had some experience trooping prior to the quarantine, correct?
Yeah, I was able to get my first troop was in January this year. It was
Okay.
it was at the Porter Library.
Okay.
A lot of fun.
So the question that I actually have for you here is,
Mhm.
when you compare the two experiences, so trooping prior to all the restrictions and the mask and the lockdown and people, you know, don't touch me. When you compare the experience of trooping at a time like that and trooping one of the events that we've had to do recently, what is sort of, you know, is there like a black and white thing that kind of stands out, like this is a moment that really, you know, was different for me?
Yeah, the library troop that I did was my first troop. Had really no idea what to expect, so that was pretty fun. It was myself and someone from a Jedi from the local Rebel Legion, so that made it kind of interesting. I had my staff officer kit on, and so I was able to go around and kind of interact with the kids, watch them make lightsabers, ask why none of the blades were red, you know, spot them while they're doing the Dagobah obstacle course, and, you know, also tell them that The Empire Strikes Back was probably the greatest military documentary ever filmed. But, you know, little things. And it was just a lot of fun interacting with the kids. and this is just, it's just different. The, you know, Jason alluded to it when he was talking about earlier. The interaction is different. We're kind of, and Jim even said, you're still kind of hands a bit away from folks, but when you go ahead and you see, you know, the parade that we did for Dylan the Destroyer, that made the news. And the news anchor or the on-the-spot reporter is interviewing Dylan, and they're talking about all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, conversation stops, and Dylan yells out, "Look, it's Darth Vader!" And the entire spot just completely fell apart. That's amazing, right? I mean, that moment was probably about as close as, you know, what I had kind of seen with Library Troop. Just seeing Dylan light up, seeing the excitement, and just stopping everything because Darth Vader and the 501st are showing up, right?
Jason, have you had any experiences that you think are unique to trooping during this time? You know, and obviously, you know, since you are a newer member, you haven't had a lot of experience in you know, kind of the normal way things go. But you know, have you seen stuff that you would like to carry over when we hopefully get back to having to be a little less careful and not bite our, you know, not worry about biting our gloves?
I mean, as far as things that I've noticed, I was in Richmond this past weekend, and I think as far as the normal vein of events go, when you think of 501st, I think that's probably about as close as I've had, because that was a mini Comic Con of sorts. It was still a very small event, but you know, when you were there, you had people who'd start running over to try and get your picture, and then, you know, you hear their parents yelling at them, get back here, so they can put the mask on or whatever, especially their young kids before they take the photos. And just little things that like that you kind of notice, where they're trying to help everything seem more normal for everyone there, like get a sense of normalcy again with
I
these kind
pulled
of
up some
events.
videos for you.
But at the same time, still trying to make sure that, you know, everyone's staying safe. As far as things to bring forward, I mean, this is kind of causing us to dig deep and get creative with the way we approach events. I mean, this right here is a pretty good example, and you know, this format I think would be good for other events going forward, even just to maybe showcase some of the events that we are doing. So I think that this would be one of the great things to come out of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I know that it's definitely forced a rethink of a lot of how we do things, both as a squad and at events and kind of across the board. So in that vein, and here in about 10 minutes, we're gonna hopefully take a few questions. But before we get there, I want to ask: has the pandemic, and we're gonna start with Dave here, has the pandemic and the quarantine and all that changed how you view trooping and costuming? And to give you a little context for what I mean, a lot of times, you know, people join our group and you know, the reasons are just all over the map. You know, it depends on the person. Some people think that it's really awesome to go do community events. Some people really dig the parades and the things like that. Some people really enjoy going to the conventions, and so you have all kinds of reasons. Do you think that the pandemic and quarantine and all that has changed your reasons for wanting to join the 501st? And David, we're gonna go with you.
Yeah. The quarantine hasn't changed my reasons. It absolutely hasn't. I said it before. I think what we do is probably more important, and I will kind of key off what Jim said originally. Our job, if you will, as the 501st hasn't changed. It is to essentially share our love and enjoyment of Star Wars, right? Propel that out to the greater community, make kids smile, support charities, and that hasn't changed. I mean, our job hasn't changed just because our situation has, right? Now, we have to be more creative about it, right? Events like this are like Jason said. We're going to see more of them, and it's fantastic. It's a great way that we can reach more people and do our job on a bigger scale. Some of the things that we've done earlier in Inferno Squad, Daniel. I mean, you had an awesome idea on the morale videos, and we've done video birthday greetings and the stuff like that. I mean, that has been, look, this started as my hobby, something that I did to let my geek flag fly. The morale videos that we did, my entire family got involved on that, and we have had a blast doing those, right? Same thing with the birthday videos. So I mean, so I guess while our job hasn't changed, we've had to come up and be creative and come up with new ways to continue to do it.
Now, Jim, you are the squad PR guy, and I'm curious, so because you do so much of our public postings and things like that, has doing things during the pandemic kind of changed your outlook? Have you found new reasons for kind of being in this hobby?
Yeah, I joined this because I really wanted to do the hospital troops. That seemed to me to be something that I wanted to do to give back. And I think through this pandemic, I've discovered just how important it is to keep that internal morale going, and also the public facing side of this. So every week we do a spotlight on a costume. It'd be a member of the squad, and we post a photo of them in their costume, something about that particular character, and then we credit the member of our squad for doing that, and we post that. And those posts get great shares and likes and everything on social media. It's great, Instagram, Facebook, and everything. So that I think has really kind of surprised me, just how people kind of look forward to seeing, okay, who's going to be this week. But then also just doing the things that keep us in touch with one another, putting those postings up in our squad group, so that way people have something to talk about. I mean, it could be something silly, it could be some news about Star Wars, it could be something about the squad itself, that we have something coming up that we can do, whether it's I mentioned before about the virtual cantina nights and everything. And I think that all has led us, and especially me, to dig down deeper and try to make it a little bit more special, because this whole situation that we're all in right now. So you had the great idea for the virtual cantinas, and I love that. And I said, how can we make this even more special? Let's give our cantina a name. And so at first the idea was, well, let's use Oga's cantina from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Like, okay. Then I started thinking, like, what can we do that would be uniquely ours? So I started reading Star Wars books when I was like 8 years old. When the movie came out, I got the Star Wars novel. I got Splinter of the Mind's Eye when that came out. And I loved reading the Brian Daley Han Solo trilogy and everything. So and then right on through when Tim Zahn came and did the new Thrawn trilogy and everything, and kind of restarted interest in everything back in the early 90s. And so I kind of glommed onto the name Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire, and he had his ship, the Outrider. So it's like, well, what if we did something that's kind of like along the lines of, and I got this inspiration from Disney Springs down in Florida. They have a bar there that's called Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar. And if you look really closely, it's actually tied in with Indiana Jones. Because Jock Lindsay was the pilot at the very beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, after the boulder comes down and he gets chased through the forest and everything. He was the pilot. And so this whole thing is like built around him. And so I said, what if we did like a virtual thing like that for our cantina, and we centered around Dash Rendar? So we have Dash Rendar's Outrider Bar. And then I tried to come up with some other aspects of it. So I was like, well, what planet is it on? And so I picked out a planet from Han Solo's Revenge from Brian Daly. And then for the exterior of the place, I found some photos that people had taken from Tunisia, from these buildings that were around the location of what Lucas had used when he filmed the original movie. And so I found one of those and just put it together, used the Orbash English font, and all of a sudden we've got Dash Rendar's Outrider Bar. And so that's kind of our thing now. So it's just a matter of being creative and being able to pull things like that together that can kind of give that extra kick to some of these events, or to some of these posts to just kind of liven it up a little bit. So it's been fun, and kind of helped keep me a little bit busy too.
I do want to mention that if you have not had the chance to read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, you're really missing out on a treat, particularly since it was written prior to Empire Strikes Back, and they didn't really have all the story nailed down yet. James, so we've heard a lot about motivation and things like that. I'm curious. So you've been part. We've had a lot of talk here about the virtual events that we've done, which has really been, this enormous group effort. There's so many people like Damon, the Squad XO, Jim, David. These guys have all kind of jumped in and made this virtual stuff possible. I'm curious, and I know that you've been present for just about everything virtual that we've done. I'm curious, has the virtual stuff given you additional, do you feel like you've gotten something out of it that you wouldn't have gotten normally?
Yeah. I think definitely with these virtual nights, like not only is it useful for seeing you guys and hanging out, in lieu of, armor parties or other events normally, but it's also helped me, get used to the fact of, doing these virtual sessions, with other organizations or other events. So for example, right now I'm taking a graduate course at George Mason, and we've had to improvise and using these Zoom meetings in doing our discussions and whatnot. So it's definitely made me a bit more Zoom savvy, I like to think. I also feel like, since the pandemic, I think, I really like being part of the collaborative process of, what can we do? What can we do as a squad? What can we do as a garrison to get people involved, when everyone's, hunkering down at their homes? So I like really collaborating with you guys in terms of, what we can do, like this, such as this InfernoCon. Before I never thought about, helping to organize or, seeing how the process goes in organizing one of these. So I think that's been really beneficial, really useful.
All right, and just real briefly here before we jump to a couple questions. Can you, and this is for Jason, I'm sorry, playing off the themes that we've already heard here during this round, do you feel like these virtual events have given you a chance to get to know people in a way that you wouldn't normally have had? Has that been beneficial?
Yeah, because again, because a lot of the events are kind of restricted in what we do, and everyone's situation is different. There hasn't been a whole bunch of in-person interaction outside of a core group of people doing some of the troops. So there's a lot of people, especially during the setup of this event, that I've reached out to and started talking to through this event. A lot of squad members that I hadn't met that just kind of reached out to on Facebook and asked if this is something they'd be interested in, and then we just started talking from there. So I mean, I think this is a good way to kind of branch out and help get more people involved, help introduce, especially newer members like myself to some of the older members and just other members, not necessarily within Inferno, but other members of the Garrison as a whole. So I think this is a great platform to be able to do that, and then, just interact amongst each other.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You guys have all done a great job answering some of these, and for the people who joined us, these weren't rehearsed. So these guys have been taking these kind of crazy questions off the cuff, which is a testament to their ability to think on their feet and their patience. We do have a couple questions from the people who've been watching. So one that we have here, and let's start. We're just going to go down the line. So let's start with David. How have you been spending your free time? And just real quick before you answer, this is the last chance to make a donation to our Make-A-Wish group for this evening. So if you've been waiting, now is the time. All right, David, how have you been spending your free time?
How have I been spending my free time? Just looking to see if my wife is around. So I picked up a fourth kit. I got a mouse droid that I'm trying to wrap my head around, trying to build. Picked up a lot of other accessories for my kits. Yeah, we need to end this. I'm starting to run out of bank account. The projects that I'm picking up and spending money on are getting a little ridiculous at this point. Yeah.
All right, Jason, how have you been spending your free time?
Oh boy, more or less the same thing. Hey, let me just start with the clone trooper, and now I have a snow trooper and a stormtrooper commander and a shadow trooper and a Del Mico. The and too many other ones that are midway through. But I picked up 3D printing towards the beginning of the pandemic. It's one of those things that kind of just snowballed. Started with one computer or with one printer, but I'm impatient, so I decided I'll get a second one to help the speed. And then I was still impatient, so I decided to get a third. And throughout the pandemic, I've kind of just been YouTube education as far as 3D printing goes, and between that and finishing up costumes, learning how to paint things, just overall doing more hands-on projects. It's pretty much how I've been spending most of my downtime.
James, $1 million question goes to you. How have you been spending your free time?
Sleeping. No, I'm kidding. No, a lot. So aside from working my job, taking classes part-time, I don't know if you guys can see. This guy came in today, straight from the UK, from RS Prop Masters. I ordered a kit from them because I figured, there's Stormtrooper is nice, but I'd like to add to that collection. I like to branch out. And it was funny because I was trying to decide whether to do a Snowy or a Scout Trooper, and I put like a poll on my Instagram, asking people, hey, what do you guys think I should do? Should I go for a Snowy or should I go for scout trooper. And it was funny. One of our members, Chris, he reached out to me. He's just like, James, there is only one answer. You know what it is. And for those that you don't know, Chris Williams.
You talked to the detachment leader. Of course, you got one answer.
Yeah, Chris Williams. He is like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, snowtrooper fan I've ever met. Like, if you've seen his collection, it's crazy. Like, he even went so far as like going out to Norway and go to the glacier where they filmed Hoth. Like, he, his wife, and a couple others. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, so like the poll came to a tie, but I think if it wasn't for him, like I probably still go with the snowy anyway, just because I think it probably looks cooler. No pun intended.
All right. I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, I'm gonna move on to Jim here. Before I do, I'm just gonna point out to my wife that after all this conversation about buying new costumes and stuff, I have not done that. So, get mad at these guys first. Jim, what have you been doing with your free time?
Well, I have a long-suffering shore trooper kit that is will be 4 years old in October. I actually purchased it before Rogue One came out, so there's actually been a lot of modifications I've been having to make to it. I've gotten 5 costumes approved since I purchased that. So I've been trying to do some work on that. And like some others here in the group, I picked up 3D printing back in March. And so there were some parts on the Shore Trooper that I've been reprinting. And in the meantime, I saw that with the latest add-on to Battlefront 2, there were 3 new variations of Shore Troopers in that. So I noticed that I'm actually building the Shore Trooper Captain, and I noticed that with a couple of extra pieces that I could print, that I could paint differently, I could create a Shore Trooper Specialist. So that's kind of what I've been doing in terms of my own personal costume stuff. I did print a couple of Mandalorian helmets for my kids. And they have the armor already that we got them for Christmas last year. So kind of just some family projects like that, and non-Star Wars related, just a lot of work around the house, and a lot more work that I've been doing for my job too. It's just without a commute, I'm working. So.
All right, so I actually have 2 for Jason here, and I'm gonna link these. Someone would like to know, what are the names of your dogs that I think have been snoozing behind you, and is that a 3D printer?
Well, now that you guys want to know, of course they're hiding. But the black one is Maximus, and then the Blenheim one is Sparta, and then let's see, just move this here. Yeah, so I have an enclosure that I used to have both 3D printers in, but I took one of them out because I got the larger spool, so there wasn't enough room. So as of right now, there's one 3D printer on the top and then one inside of the enclosure. And then the third one is kind of off to the side.
So,
And we're going to be doing a couple panels during InfernoCon about 3D printing and how you can build props with that. And in fact, we're going to be talking about people who have done droids with 3D printers as well. David, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask Jason, because I know nothing about 3D printing. Sorry. Is the enclosure for sound attenuation, or?
I'd built an enclosure for if I was printing with more toxic materials. I shouldn't really say toxic, but some that kind of just give off a less than pleasant odor.
Gotcha.
Mostly because I do have the dog, so I do have. You can kind of see them like filtration fans built into the side of the door there. As of right now, I've only been printing with PLA, but it's just kind of future proofing for if I did want to move on to different materials. So at least I'd have one enclosure with one printer capable of printing those kind of materials.
Gotcha.
Well, I've got two more questions for you guys, which is great because we're getting near the end of our time. So the first question is, there's been a lot of focus on things like wearing masks. Since we have been telling our troopers to wear a mask, how comfortable going and doing these troops are you guys? And are you comfortable with things like fist bumps, elbow bumps, since you have, a lot of us have the long sleeves and the armor on your forearms. So let's start with David.
So I'm pretty fortunate. Both of my pilot and my shadow guard, I have a baklava, so I have an easy to wear mask underneath. So that makes life a lot easier, a lot more comfortable. As far as the rest, I mean, it's, a fist bump. Okay. I mean, folks are going, the elbow is definitely more gooder because I'm less likely to get my elbow in my mouth when I take my sleeve off. But
All right. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No.
All right, Jason. So the question is, everyone's wearing masks. So are you comfortable trooping? And are you comfortable with things like fist and elbow bumps?
Well, in a clone suit, you don't really have much say, just because you have hardly any mobility. So it's usually the other person that kind of dictates whether it's going to be a elbow bump or a fist bump. You're just kind of standing there for the pictures. But yeah, for the most part, it'll just be people who want to come up for the fist bump. Fist bump or elbow, either way. I have gloves on the whole time, and I do sanitize the gloves as often as I can. Like if I go with any piece of my armor, if I go to take the helmet off, grab some water somewhere isolated, I'll try to wipe down anything that I know people have been touching and whatnot. People stand next to you for pictures, even when asked not to. Kind of just give it a quick wipe down. So yeah, I generally don't have any problems. None of my costumes really have any kind of exposed skin, and same thing, even under the helmet, I still have an additional mask, mostly just to help with the sweat collection and whatnot. So.
Okay. James, wearing mask, do you try to stay safe? Are you comfortable with things like fist bumps and elbow bumps?
Oh yeah. In terms of wearing masks, like when I wear a mask for myself, I'll try to wear it like over my helmet, and that's usually fine as long as I have the fans working in my helmet. I'm usually pretty good. It doesn't make a difference either way. Fist bumps and elbow bumps I'm also good with. I think it's trickier for elbow bumps just because of how limiting the mobility can be in the stormtrooper armor. Because you feel more like a droid sometimes in that armor than you do an actual soldier. But yeah.
All right. And Jim, same question to you.
I think that's one of the great things about the TIE pilot. You have a little bit more mobility there, and so I actually feel pretty comfortable with it. So long as the person that is there is wearing a mask as well. They're wearing a mask. I'm wearing a mask. I've got a helmet over my mask. I've got gloves on, everything else. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the fist bump or a high five, or haven't done the elbow thing yet with anybody on troop, but I think I'd be okay with that too.
All right, so I've got two more that we're going to power through real quick, and what I'm going to ask you guys to do is give just 1 to 2 sentence answers to this next one. This is a question from one of our watchers, and they would like to know, what signature troop do you miss the most? So let us start at the end. Jim, what signature event do you miss the most?
Oh, I would probably have to say the Inova Children's Hospital troops. I've only gotten to do a couple of those, but That's why I joined, to do stuff like that.
Okay. Let's jump to James.
Aaron Scare. That's going to be the one I'm going to miss the most.
All right. That's certainly understandable. Jason.
So unlike these guys, I do not have any prior experience with these large events. I was most looking forward to Star Wars Celebration this year because I believe that was the first interaction I had with the 501st was at Celebration Orlando 2017, I believe. I went to their 501st bash, and that's why I started talking to some of the members. So that's the event I was most looking forward to.
All right. And David.
I'm kind of the boat. It's kind of the same boat as Jason. Haven't had the opportunity to hit some of these bigger marquee events. The Children's Hospital, definitely. Aaron Scare sounds amazing. The St. Patrick's Day Parade sounded amazing. The Children's Hospital sounded amazing. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to a place where we're doing some of those. All right. Final question. And this one's going to be a little different. What I'd like you to do is, in one word, if you can, sum up your attitude going forward. So we are now, it is August the 26th. So moving forward, looking into the fall, what is your attitude as a member of Inferno Squad and the 501st about what, the next few months? So Jason, let's start here. One word.
Optimistic.
Good. James.
Determined.
Good. David.
Optimistic.
Jim.
Energized.
And I think those are all, optimistic, energized. These are great words, and I think that you guys are really sort of showing the, exactly what we want to see, which is people who have not given up. And I can tell you here with Inferno Squad, we have been making a real effort to keep people energized and optimistic and positive and trying to be a light to other people. I think that's one of the big opportunities that we have. We get to do this cool thing that a lot of people don't get to do. We get to dress in these neat costumes. And when we can bring a little light into somebody else's world, whether that's someone who just finished up a cancer treatment or even just someone who's tired of sitting at home, I think that's a unique opportunity that all of these guys here tonight have been making the most of. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. And I'd like to thank you guys for being here for our first preview panel. We'll be doing more of these as we get closer to InfernoCon, which is again in the first weekend of October. Make sure that you look up the event website, which is available on many of the Facebook groups and things like that. So thank you again, and I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Good night.